What's up, guys? What's going on? Tito here with Aloha Android. Today, we're going to be taking a look at three phablets offered by Boost Mobile. We're going to be taking a look at the ZTE Warp Elite, the LG G Stylo, and the ZTE Max. Now, this is not the newer Max, or the Max Plus is what it's called. This is the original Max. However, I'll be making reference to the Max Plus because both of them nearly have the same specs, except that the Max Plus has more internal storage, more RAM, and it's on Lollipop. Whereas everything else, like the camera sensor, um, is pretty much the same, and it also has a different processing chip. So let's jump right into my thoughts and opinions between these three. I had to get a text now. Let's jump right into the differences between these three phablets. Um, so let's start off with the G Stylo. Couple things I can say about the G Stylo. Now, some people are probably going to disagree because it's been a wishy-washy experience with several people, including myself. But I honestly can say that I've had a great experience with the G Stylo. I know, shocker. Some people are going to be like, it's like really crappy, and I really don't know what happened. This is probably one of the devices that LG, I believe, really screwed up on, because they made two different variants. So there's a higher spec variant, which is the GSM version of it. The CDMA version is weaker in every way, and I think it caused for a bad experience for those that were on Boost Mobile or Sprint. But I have to say that I was lucky enough not to experience a lot of the things that people were naming out was happening with their G Stylo, namely it being super laggy and everything else. I haven't had that issue really with the G Stylo at all whatsoever. But then again, I'm probably not running as much apps as everyone else is. But um, you know, on the fact that it's got a built-in stylus, but it does not have like the same features as the Galaxy Note series. But it's still nice to have that. So 5.7-inch display on it. The display is actually quite nice. Um, I kind of dig it, and the UI itself is nice and clean. Nothing too over dazzling, too flashy. Um, Call quality on it is actually pretty good. Battery life is tremendously well on it with a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, and then of course the fact that this is on Marshmallow 6.0, it does have Doze, and Doze really does kind of help out with it on standby time. The battery life is tremendously well on it, so that's for that. The Warp Elite, I gotta say, really, really, really well device. Yes, it only has a 5.5-inch display instead of 5.7-inch display, but still, it's a pretty tall phone. Nice and narrow, and the curves make it very really nice to hold. The construction itself is quite nice, a little bit unique in a way because I don't know if you guys can see very well, but you guys can see that the screen right there in the corner, uh, it's like they laid it on top this round thing. So it's kind of weird how the screen is placed with the borders and edges and whatnot. But color accents is actually very well. It is running 5.1.1 Lollipop, so that it's not on the latest version. It doesn't have Marshmallow. It hasn't gotten Marshmallow, but hopefully maybe sometime this year it will. Who knows? But battery life is actually pretty well on this device. It lasts good amount of time. No removable battery on this, so yeah, you're gonna have to use like a power bank if you guys want to keep it juiced up all the time. And 13 megapixel rear facing camera, 5 megapixel front facing camera, which I didn't mention on the G Stylo, has a 5 megapixel front facing camera and an 8 megapixel rear facing camera on the G Stylo. The Warp Elite has higher resolution for the cameras, but doesn't always necessarily mean that it's going to take the greatest pictures, which I will demo some photos that I took from it. I really have to say, with 16 gigs of onboard storage and 2 gigs of RAM, this phone flies stellar very well, performance wise. Does very, very well. I have to say, this is probably one of my favorite phones for favorite phablets, really, is the Warp Elite. And so moving on to the last one here, we have the ZTE Boost Max, aka just the ZTE Max. Now this was my first phablet I've ever owned on Boost Mobile, and I have to say it was quite nice, a good run. Made it all the way up to Kit Kat, and that's about as far as it went. Um, So like right now, I do have it on Freedom Pop. I was able to activate this on Freedom Pop, so it does have Freedom Pop service on there. So this phone will always be like a backup phone of mine. Will always be on. Um, and I'm running a custom launcher on here, so I'm not running the stock launcher. Um, but I believe this is a 1 megapixel front facing camera and an 8 megapixel rear facing camera. Battery life tremendously well. The battery life on this phone lasts very, very, very well. I have to say, build quality is quite stellar. It's not made out of metal. It does look like it. If I was to pop the case off this, it would have like this gray and a metallic silver color, but it's plastic. It's not metal at all whatsoever. No removable battery. 8 gigs of internal storage, only 1 gig of RAM. So yeah, it made for having some really, really tough times if you were going to install any more applications than just your basic stuff. Like if you were going to run games and things like that, you would definitely have a very bad time with that. As the more memory was eaten up, and just the internal memory, not the RAM, just the internal memory, the more laggy the phone got. So popping it out of its case right now, if you're wondering. But so that was quick. Anyways, here you go. So here's what it looked like without a case on. Um, and the Max Plus is a all gold. I mean, it still has the two plastic points up here and then here, but it's all gold. And the Max Plus has 16 gigs of onboard storage with 2 gigs of RAM, so it's spec'd identically to the Zte Warp Elite. With the, I believe it's the Snapdragon 410 processor, while this has the S4 Pro, I believe, from Qualcomm. So, a bit of things, but it still runs tremendously well. It still does what I need it to do. And I really don't have much of a complaint to the Max, other than it's not on the latest and greatest, and it doesn't have a quad core chip. It has a dual core processor, so processing power is a lot weaker with the Max. So anyways, we're gonna take a look at some pictures right now. I took some pictures with these devices, and so I'm kind of winging it. If you guys can tell, I don't have this video planned out, but anyways, yeah, I'm gonna show you guys a couple of still pics so you guys can see the differences between all three cameras, and then I'll go into my final thoughts about each device and close this video out. So the first photo up basically is taken by the rear camera of the Zte Max. Looks pretty good. Here's the selfie cam of the Zte Max. This is a 1 megapixel front-facing camera, so it did kind of do good indoors, kind of. Here's the LG G Stylo's rear camera, the 8 megapixel camera on the G Stylo. Colors look all right. And this is the selfie camera. As you guys can see, it has this little hazy glare to it when you quickly take a selfie. This is the Zte Warp Elite's 13 megapixel rear-facing camera. And finally, we have the front-facing camera, selfie camera of the Zte Warp Elite. So there you guys pretty much have it. Technically, having higher megapixels doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to have the greatest experience with cameras. I didn't take any outdoor photo shots. I just wanted to kind of just compare what they would be like indoor if you were to take pictures indoors. And to me, honestly, I feel like the front-facing camera on the Zte Max, to me, was a little bit better, a little bit more vibrant in color. The G Stylo's rear-facing camera pretty much took the cake for rear camera shots. I think that the colors in the picture came out, quite vivid and nice, not overly saturated, but just quite nice. What you would expect. But it's not, going to compete against any like flagship phones or anything like that. Like they take more stellar photos or whatnot. So between all three flagships, because I only have three of them, I really can't say for the Max Plus because I don't own it in hand, and I was gonna buy it, but I decided not to. So, and I'm still not going to. But I gotta say, the Max Plus has got to have the equivalence of the Warp Elite minus the cameras, because I believe on that one the cameras are still the same. It's still an 8 megapixel rear facing camera and a 1 megapixel front facing shooter. I think it's something around that point. But the Max, still one of my top phones, but very outpowered by today's standard budget devices. So dual core processing makes for slow processing when you're going to be running games and stuff like that. But if you're going to do like social media, social networking, then it'll run just fine. Except if you have Facebook on here, it'll completely bog the phone down. So yeah, this is pretty much like dead last. The G Stylo running in second. The reason why I say that is, well, it does have 6.0 marshmallow, and it it looks pretty good. Responds very well. Just the fact that it has low storage, and the fact that LG decided to make this one weaker spec than its twin, that's the GSM version, and it doesn't have NFC, which its twin does, makes for a kind of letdown experience, but still outperforms the ZTE Max in some areas, and so it runs second. And of course, my top phablet would be the ZTE Warp Elite. Beautifully constructed phone, great battery life. It can perform very well. 16 gigs of onboard storage with expandable memory. 2 gigs of RAM helps push applications just fine. Yeah, it doesn't have a removable battery, but you know what? I mean, I got power banks. I got a couple of them around here. So, you know, carrying a power bank in a backpack or in my pocket, or whatever, is not really going to kill me. Plus, the battery life lasts pretty long too. And then, it doesn't have the greatest cameras, even though it's supposed to, 13 megapixel rear facing camera, 5 megapixel front facing camera. You want it to take like some really good shots. But if you take the time to actually focus your shots and things like that, you should get stellar pictures. The pictures that I showed were just like if you were to pull your camera out, hit the shot and take your photo, right? Like you're not actually going to sit there and just really start adjusting everything to get a very clear shot. That's what happened here. So yeah, first, second, third. That's my thoughts about these three phablets offered by Boost Mobile. You guys can find them at boostmobile.com if you guys are interested in them. Yeah, so that's it for today's video, guys. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know by leaving me that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Click that subscribe button. It's that way on the mobile app. And that about does it. You'll see me in the next one, guys. Bye.